Hello everyone, my name is Chindradiya. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to discuss about GitHub Actions. So what is GitHub Actions? What are the components in GitHub Actions? And we also will create one ci application using GitHub Actions. So basically GitHub Action is a feature provided by the GitHub that allow you to automate your software development workflow directly within your GitHub repository. Basically, GitHub repository is a open source platform where you have to create, you can keep your source code into GitHub. Okay, so it is open source projects you can keep on to GitHub. So it is a GitHub Action is a platform for automating developer workflows. It is easily set up the pipelines. Okay, and it is mainly for developer tools. It enable you to build, test, and deploy your code without needing any setup or manage additional infrastructure. Okay. You can create custom workflows using YAML files to define series of steps that should be executed when certain events occur, such as push code or push code changes or creating pull requests. So basically, we will use for CI/CD like Jenkins, Circle CI, and Azure Devops. And if you are in GitLab, okay, there also will provide ci right? Similarly, GitHub Actions is for GitHub, okay. So here we will use YAML files. You will create YAML files for ci and if you are into Jenkins, so there you will write that Jenkins files, right? Similarly, we will create a YAML files, okay. The components of in GitHub is like workflows, events, jobs, steps, actions, and runners. Let me show you that my GitHub repository project. So this is that GitHub Actions Docker ci. This is my GitHub repository. Currently, it doesn't set up GitHub ci workflow. Okay. So if you want to configure ci for your repository, you have to go to Actions and you have to select the workflow. Okay. We'll discuss what is workflow, what is runner, events, all those things. Okay. So by default, it will have some templates. By default, it will be available under GitHub Actions. Okay. If you are code, if you are working on Java with Maven, you have to select this configuration. By default, these configurations will be available. If you have Java with and the published Docker containers, okay, and deployments, security and continuous integration, automation. Okay, you have to select any of these templates. Okay, it is free configured steps. So I'm going with a simple workflow. This is that simple workflow configuration. So let me change this blank to cicd main.yml. Okay, and this is the workflow name. You have to give an any name. Okay, my first application on trigger. Okay, on trigger push events. Okay, anything happened on my this repository, okay, it should able to trigger this application. Let me remove unwanted things on branch, and this also not required. Job is required, build step and steps. Checkout also not required because we okay, this one is removed. Okay. Okay, this is the simple YAML file. Okay, we will see what is workflow and what is this events and jobs build and runs on. Okay, this is runs on means it is a runner where it will run this application. Okay, this code should be run. So by default it will pull Ubuntu latest. This is that GitHub hosted runner. Okay, in Jenkins we will use like agents, right? So if it doesn't mention anything on Jenkins, by default it will be run on master node. Okay, similarly, if you wanted to run your job any specific agent, so you have to configure those agents. Similar, we here we will use runners. Okay, this is the hosted runner by GitHub. Okay, Ubuntu latest is the hosted runner, and these steps are like in Jenkins, it is stages, right? Under stages, we have used stage and the steps and actions. Similarly, here also we will follow the same steps and we will use the name here, the step name and run that hello world. Okay, let me execute. Let me save this one. Let me commit this and first commit. Okay, when you do commit, you have to go to actions and you can check the pipeline. It is building. It is success. Okay, so this setup job is by default it will be there, and complete job also it will be there once this is taken by that GitHub actions. Okay, and here run actions, it will do check out the your source code. Okay, what are the source code, it will be available, it will be fetch that from this GitHub to GitHub action workspace. Okay, then run one line script. Here we have to run like echo hello world and hello world and post and run that checkout action on checkout. Here nothing, just the code is checked out, that's it. And post that job completed, it will be clean up processes. Like this you have to edit your workflow. Okay, you have to add one more job, like here build stage is right, build jobs are now, you also can do deploy job, something you can edit. Okay, and this you have to give any name of that. Basically this checkout step also not required for time being. It is a sample, right? So runs on Ubuntu and build code and deploy code. Here name, here instead of one line I am giving something like Maven build name, and here you can use the name deploy code, and if you try to commit any change, so it will be build and deploy the commit message I am giving, so it will run the pipeline. See 303, this is the commit message. If you go to actions and if you check, this is the build process is happening. And if you observe here, there is two stages, one is build stage, another one is deploy stage. Okay, and build stage like setup and Maven build, the name of the stage name Maven build, and here we have given hello world. Okay, even though if you have make any changes on your source code, okay, and it will be created. Let me try to ci/cd docker. Let's commit, added comment. Okay, now if you observe, there is a 804 commit message is happened. Now if you go to actions, see, with this commit message, it is started the application, triggered the application, and it should be happened. So anything on this repository, it is started triggering the build. Okay, now we will see the components. Okay, these are the main components like events. Whenever something events means like commit the changes, pull request created, okay, merge the changes, those things whenever happened in your GitHub repository, the job should be created. So under jobs they have job 1 and job 2, like this many jobs. Okay, job 1 runner 1. Okay, like you have to run many jobs. Okay, each job in a workflow run on a fresh VM. Okay, now if you observe, there are two stages, right? Like build and deploy. So build, it will run on one runner, and deploy will run on runner 2, like that. Okay, now what are the workflows? Okay, so the workflow is an automated procedure that you can add to your repository. So we have added that workflow repository. There are made up one or more jobs that can be scheduled or triggered by the events. Okay, now we have seen if something happened, automatically triggered by the event. So if you observe workflow on events, okay, so on this branch, main branch, okay, anything happened, like here only we have given like push changes. Okay, and you can give pull request, okay, comma separated, and you have to mention that, and it will be able to trigger that bill. It can be used to build test package, release, deploy project within the GitHub. Okay, a workflow can be created inside the GitHub slash workflows directly, adding the YAML file. We have seen how to create this workflow. Okay, so once this workflow is created, it will be used like slash GitHub slash workflows. Under this, there is a YAML file. Okay, now what are the events? Okay, an event is a specific activity that trigger a workflow. For example, activity can be originated from GitHub when someone pushes commit to the repository, or when an issue is pull request is created, or pull request is created. Okay, you also can use this repository to dispatch webhook to trigger workflow when external events occur. And what are the jobs means? Like we have configured the jobs, right? If you observe here, we have jobs. Okay, under these jobs, a job is a set of steps that are executed on the same runner. By default, workflow with multiple jobs in parallel. You also can configure workflow to run jobs in sequential. For example, a workflow can have two sequential jobs that build and test code, okay, where the job is dependent on the status of the build job. If the build job is fails, the test will not run. Okay, if if you have stopped, if you failed in one stage, it will not go to the another stage in GitHub Actions. Okay, what are the steps? A step is a individual here. Steps means it is a individual task that run on commands on job. A step can be either action or cell command. Okay, each step is in job execution on the same runner, allowing actions to that job to share the data within others, with each others. Okay, okay, what are the actions? Okay, actions are when to the trigger that pipeline, like that. Okay, action is standalone commands, okay, that combine into steps. Each step is created a job. An action is the smallest portable building block of workflow. Okay. You can create your custom actions, or you can create using GitHub community, or use any action in workflow. You must include is a step. See, an action, like if something happened and you should able to trigger. And what are the runners? A runner is a server that has in the GitHub actions that runs the application installed. And you also can use the run hosted by the GitHub or hosted by your own. Now in this demo, we are going to use that hosted by that GitHub action. Now we will see one more demo where how to configure self-hosted and how to trigger the jobs on self-hosted runner. A runner listens the available jobs, runs on one job at a time, reports the progress and logs results to be back to the GitHub. And type of runners. As I said, there are two types. One is GitHub hosted runner, which runs like based on that Ubuntu, Linux, Microsoft Windows and Mac OS. Each job in workflow run in fresh virtual VM. GitHub hosted runner. You need to different operating system or require specific hardware configuration. You can host your runner and supported that runner and hardware resources. The supported hardware specification for Windows and Linux mission, which hosted by that hosted runner, GitHub hosted runner, it's two core CPU and 7 GB of RAM memory and 14 GB of SSD disk space. If you in case of Mac OS, Mac VM, 3 core CPU and 14 GB of RAM memory. And if you observe structure of that GitHub Actions and Jenkins pipeline, okay, um, the name we can give any name of that workflow like sample hello world application on push, okay, on push branch name. If anything happened on this branch like master branch, we are telling to trigger this the job and jobs, and here we are using build code and runs and steps and the step and action. Okay, similarly if you compare with Jenkins, okay, if you compare with triggers GitHub push, okay, here you can compare with push actions, okay, events or pull request anything. And if you observe agent, here we are using runner. So here runs on, okay, this runs on Ubuntu latest. You compare with agents here, okay, any agent. And the stage, okay, the stages are in build stage, okay, this is one stage build code, okay. Under build stages there are the stage and the stage steps and action it will be there, right? Similarly here job is like Jenkins pipeline and steps are stages, okay, and the name is like the step name, okay. Under steps, see similar here the stages steps, here steps, and the name here the here name is the step. Under that step what action should be performed, okay. Like this you can compare. If you observe that syntax and structure, and GitHub action uses the ML syntax to define workflow jobs and steps. When compared with the Jenkins pipeline, it will uses the Groovy DSL to define pipeline and stages and steps. And agent and runner. Okay, GitHub uses the runs on specific operating system for the job runner. Example Ubuntu latest. Okay. In Jenkins pipeline, it will utilizes the agent to specify where the job pipeline should be executed. And triggers. Okay. Trigger when should be action taken. Okay. It defines the trigger using the keyword. For example, push event or master branch or main branch. Okay. In Jenkins pipeline, utilizes trigger block to define event trigger in the pipeline, like GitHub push or GitHub push events. Okay. And steps are both Jenkins and GitHub actions uses the same to define the task within a job or stage. GitHub actions, each step is defined under the steps keyword with the name and the run command. In Jenkins pipeline, each step is defined within the stage block and each stage block can have multiple steps. An integration part, if you see, GitHub integrated directly to GitHub repository, make it easy to set up CI/CD workflows hosted on the GitHub. When compared to Jenkins, it is required separate Jenkins server installation and configuration, provided more flexibility but required additional steps to maintain. So if you are in go to Jenkins, like you have to server and you have to maintain the Jenkins, okay. But in case of GitHub Actions, it is not required by everything. It is maintained by the GitHub itself. The main difference and GitHub and Jenkins pipeline to serve the purpose of automating ci processes, but the different in syntax and structure and integration operations. GitHub Actions provided more flexible integrated solution within the GitHub repository, while Jenkins offer more flexibility and custom applications, but also it required separate infrastructure code. Okay, these are the main differences between GitHub Actions and Jenkins. Now we'll try to set up one CI/CD application for. So in this CI/CD application, what I'm going to do, I'm check out the code and build the code and push create a Docker image, push that Docker image to Docker Hub and deploy to the container. Is it to Docker container? Okay. So let me edit this file and so if I wanted to explain my source code, let me explain the source code. This is sample application with I have Docker file. This is Maven based Java application. Okay, here in this Docker file, it is multi-stage Docker container. Okay, and I created work directory app and copy that form file and run that Maven dependencies and copy that source file to src and Maven package. And once the package is on the next stage, what I'm trying to do here is like copy that the target var file to my web app slash var file and expose to port 8080 and run the Tomcat application. Start the Tomcat. And this is the sample web application. There is one index.jsp file. Okay. Now, if you go to here and CI/CD, let me try to do edit file. Let me remove all the comments. Because CI/CD demo and push event and jobs. Okay, and I'm using Ubuntu latest. Here I need to use check out the code. Okay, let me I check out the code here. So let me copy paste this one. Code is ready. So what in this stage I am trying to do here, master branch, a main branch. Okay, and that jobs, this is that build job. Okay, any name we can give and runs on Ubuntu latest. This is that runner which is hosted by the GitHub. In the first step, I am going to use code checkout. Uses the action and checkout at the rate version 4. Okay, you will get a doubt what is this at the rate version 4. Okay, GitHub Actions by default. See, if you type github.com/actions, these are the actions by default GitHub. So if you go to that repository and these are the actions, if you see checkout, okay, there is a checkout actions under checkout. See checkout. If you scroll down, there is a version 4. Okay, this is kind of a plugin. Okay, you have to remember this checkout is a plugin and it will have the version 4. Okay, this is one action to check check out the code. Okay. Now if you try to commit this code, what it will do, it will check out the code from GitHub to this workspace. Code checkout. The main branch, let me commit. And if you observe actions, that code checkout is happening. See, code checkout is completed. If you see code checkout, this is able to check out the code. Now what we need to do? I need to do that, create a image and publish that image to Docker Hub. So I need to log in Docker Hub. So this is my Docker Hub, and if you go to account, okay, this is account verified, and I wanted to create a token. Let me delete this token, and name, you can give any name first. To log in from GitHub Action to Docker Hub repository, we need credentials, so that we need to configure those credentials. So Docker login should need to be there. For that, you need username and password. So you have to configure Docker login. So next step, edit file. Next step, what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to do Docker login. See, I am using Docker Hub username and password variabilization. Okay. So instead of directly putting username password, it's not a good practice, right? So we have to configure this username and Docker Hub token. So for that, you have to, in the same repo only, you have to go to settings. Let me duplicate this window. Settings, and if you observe, there is a code security and analysis. So here, sorry, yeah, sorry, secrets and variables. Okay, you have to go to secrets and variables. If you select actions, okay, there is a repository secrets. So here you have to provide your variable names. I'm using this variable name Docker Hub username. You have to provide, where is this? Yeah, Docker Hub username, and the name of that. This is my Docker Hub username, and secret. The variable name is Docker Hub token. Create one more secret, and I'm using that token. Anyway, after this demo, I'm going to delete this token. Add the secret. Now we have to commit this code, and we'll check whether we should able to log in from GitHub action to Docker Hub. So commit message Docker login. So if you observe GitHub actions, this is my commit message Docker Hub login, and we will see whether we should able to login or not. Post login. Okay. Login to Docker Hub. Login succeeded. Okay. So from my GitHub action to Docker, I am should able to log in. Now, once I should able to log in, what I need to do, next step is I wanted to do the create image and push the image to the Docker Hub. Okay. So what I am trying to do here next step is push Docker image to Docker Hub. Okay. If you wanted to see slash Docker and actions like just now we have checked, right? Uh, Check out if you see actions, push to next we will try to see Docker push to the Docker image. So directly it will do the build and it will push the image to Docker Hub. Okay. For time being, we are doing the tagging with hardcode values and we'll try to make the automated with the tag name. With the tag name, commit message with tag name. We'll see that also in the next step. Here, edit workflow. So push Docker image to Docker Hub. So this is my username and push is true and uses Docker and build push action. Okay. If you check build push action, somewhere it should be there in build push actions. Okay. If you check GitHub actions, Docker build and push. See, it will show you the version and all. Okay. Version, everything it will show. This is the same step I am using here. Now, okay. And the tag I am using my username with tag name WS app. Okay. I am giving some 01. Let me see with this chinna at this slash WS app whether the repo is created or not. So if you check in my Docker Hub, so I didn't have any repository with chinna slash ws app. Okay. Once this committed the code, we will check whether the repo is created or not. For image push, go to actions. Let me close this windows. We observe Docker build deploy. it will try to do, when you push the image, it will try to do that Maven clean build and also created that image to the Docker Hub as well. So basically what we need to do, check out the code and build the code and try to copy that var file and then create a image, then push the image. So here build the Maven code and push image at one stage only. So now this job is completed. If you check your GitHub repository, just refresh. This repo is created with the tag. Now this image I need to deploy onto the Docker host, which is hosted on AWS EC2 instance. Let me create EC2 instance, launch EC2 instance, Docker VM. I'm selecting Ubuntu, free tier is enough, and key pair, edit network, subnets, anything you can use. I'm going with 1A, auto enable assign IP, and security group. I'm using my own security group which have all ports open, but it is not recommended. Only port 22 should be able to open, and required application. If you need to access this application, the port 8080 should be running, and launch the instance. And so this application is running on port 8080, so we should able to open the port 8080 within your IP only. But in my case, I have opened all security groups. But when you try to work on that application in real time, so you have to use your IP with the required port number. Okay. So let me connect meanwhile this instance. So I'm using mobile xterm to connect host. I'm using Ubuntu and my PEM file I have to select. PEM file is selected. The very first step I am using updating this machine, sudo apt-get update -y. Okay, updation is completed. Now we have to install Docker on this machine. If you check Docker -hyphen version, by default Docker will not installed on this machine. So we have to install. So to install Docker, I am going to use official Docker installation process like documentation. So using Ubuntu, this is the Ubuntu I am using this repository, setup update and apt-get install CS certificates and all. Okay, I'm going with this official documentation to install Docker, and we have to use this command docker get install. Now Docker installation is completed, but still we haven't started the Docker. Okay, so for that we have to start the Docker. So if you check Docker PS, it will show you this Docker getting permissions denied error. Okay, this is also we have to provided permissions, sudo chmod 777 and docker sock. If docker ps is, yeah, now Docker also started. If you wanted to check, if you have not started, then we have to start manually. For that we have to use sudo service docker start. Okay, that is the command if we haven't started the docker. So docker is running. If you need to check sudo service docker status, so it is active and running. If you haven't started, just need to use, instead of status, you have to use start. Okay. Now from my GitHub, I wanted to deploy that application from here. Okay. So my GitHub able to connect this VM. So for that, we have to configure this PEM file, username and IP, those details. Okay. So this is the stage where we have to use. Okay. Let me add this stage workflow. Okay. So we have to configure, this is the secret name, dev docker host and docker user and docker key. This is that we have to configure in same in secrets and variables. So we have to configure secrets and variables. The first secret is dev docker host. So you have to provide the public IP of your EC2 instance. This is copied, and the next secret is username. So user is Ubuntu. In my case, if you have EC2 instance, you have to copy that. And the next secret is like docker dev docker key. So here you have to provide that PEM file. Okay. So PEM file you have to provide. Where is my PEM file? Let me copy paste the PEM file. This is my PEM file. Okay, I'm copying this PEM file as it is and add secret. Now this is done. So what I am trying to do here, like I just need to add after this build stage image. So run Docker container on remote host. Okay. So this is that image I just need to pull, and let me fix this error, indentation errors. Okay. This is fixed, and use apply SSH action and this SSH action. Okay. SSH master, and I'm using this with host name, username and key. And what I'm trying to do here, docker rm-f, if you have any app name with ws app, you have to remove this two greater than dev, means if you get any error like standard errors. Okay, standard input output errors, this is the standard error. Okay, we have to keep that information and pull the image from the docker hub with this tag and run that container, and we'll try to see docker image pull and deploy onto the EC2 instances. Now if you go to GitHub Actions, it is trying to do the steps again, like check out the code, then create image. While creating image, it will do the build, the source code maven build, and try to create image and push that image, then try to deploy that image. So currently if you check here, doesn't have running any container also. And if you check Docker images, so it is try to pull the image. Okay, just now 24 seconds ago. Now this image, it should be run the container. If you check Docker image done, Docker PS, I think still build going on. It is failed. Okay, why it is failed? We have to check. What is the error? Okay, now version 2, but we don't have any version 2. Let me make the change. The image tag, somehow we have given version 2. This is the error, and we'll try to make that 1, and we'll wait to complete that. Okay, this is the change. Now updated the remote code changes. That is the reason if you have to do hard coded, right? So you will get this kind of error. We'll try to make automated this change. Okay. Now if you go to GitHub Actions, so it will try to do push Docker image to Docker Hub, then pull the image and run the container. So this application will run on port 8080. If you doesn't have to open that port 8080, you should able to open the port 8080 on the security groups with your IP. So in my case, I have opened all the port 8, all ports. Okay, this is not a good practice to open all ports, but yeah, this is demo, so I just opened that. Now this is completed. Now if you check, let's clear the screen and Docker PS. So this image is, this container is up and running with port 8080. So let me take the public IP of this instance, public IP, and port 8080 slash my app. See, this is the response. Okay, this is BCReddy Devops Archina Archina. Okay, this is the application response. Okay, now if I make any changes on my source code, automatically it able to do check out the code and create image and deploy the image automatically. Let me try to do, but in this case, if you try to do the source code changes, what it will be the same tag only hard coded, right? The tag name. So the code will be deployed. Let me try to make some changes on my source code index.jsp. Some code changes. Okay. Now this change is done like 83. Let me go and check with this image 83. It is trying to do the CACD. So in this here we have added please like. So the image tag should be the same only. One tag only it will show after. Okay. Now we will see whether the build is completed or not. It will take 3 minutes to complete this CI/CD, and let's check. Okay, completed. Now if you refresh, okay, where I made the change, think I have made source code change. Title, right? I don't know why it is not picking that. And let me try to automate this and we will check one more time why it is not able to pick that change. And let's try to do the automate instead of hard coding that. So with the tag our the commit ID, I wanted to create a tag and those tags should be deployed. For that, what you need to do in your GitHub workflow, add one more stage, commit ID. Okay. After Docker login, I'm trying to add one more stage, commit ID. Okay. So this is the get latest commit hash. Okay, this is the command. So we are trying to use instead of 01, I wanted to use this commit ID like version commit, and a similar way I need to use the same and try to use here also instead of this one. Okay. Now if you observe here, let me close this, and currently it is only one tag, right, with tag 01. Now what it is going to be happen, so let me commit this change, commit id with tag. This is the commit message I am giving. Action commit id with tag. So if this is completed, and we should able to see the one more tag. Now next time onwards with commit message, like if you observe here, the commit ID is F5ED185, and the tag also should be able to create with the commit ID. I think still it is in progress. Let me check. It is completed. Now refresh. See, the commit, the tag is created with commit ID. Okay. Now same, it should be able to deploy it here. See, earlier it should be web app 01, right? Now if you observe Docker PS, it should be commit ID. Okay. Now if you check your application, it is able to up and running. Now try to make some source code change and we'll check. src jsp next.jsp file. Okay, here you need to change header. Please like and share, subscribe my channel. Thank you. Okay. So instead of here, I'm making that change. Okay, I'm removing and added the commit message. Let's check automatically EDC by 3C3 whether this is able to deploy it or not. Okay, which the changes actions updated index.jsp file. I haven't given the proper commit message, and we'll see what happening. So let's check whether Docker image is it's not yet completed. Let's wait. It is completed. Now if you refresh your Docker hub, it image is pushed, and if you check in the Docker PS, the latest image is pushed, and pull the image and run the container with tag name, tag ID. And if you check here, now the changes will be reflected. See, please like and share, subscribe my channel. Thank you. This is the code change I have done. Okay. So this is the main GitHub Actions ci workflow, and the difference is Docker. Uh, the difference is Jenkins and GitHub Actions is the GitHub Actions is specific to the GitHub only, and whereas Docker Jenkins is like it should be open source. You can integrate with any third-party tools and third-party applications also. Okay, and you can use Jenkins for Bitbucket and GitLab. Okay, and whereas this GitHub we can't do ci with Bitbucket. Okay, GitHub Actions using GitHub Actions we can't do ci with Bitbucket or GitLab. Only it is specific to that GitHub only. Okay. So we did like ci and sample application. We have seen that how to configure ci pipeline using GitHub Actions and what are the components on GitHub Actions. Okay, like workflows, event, jobs, steps, actions, and runners. And we have seen that some sample code. Okay, that's all about in this session. And the next session we will see how to hosted self-hosted runner. Okay, this is GitHub hosted runner Ubuntu latest, right? We will see the next video how to configure self-hosted runner and where your job should be running on that self-hosted machine. Okay, that's all about in this session. If you like the video, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.